Yo, JD here, and as you can see, we are back on F1 22 as always. But in today's video, this is actually the first league race, official league race, that I have ever done on PlayStation, and this is actually the GFO Premier League, which stands for Greek Formula 1. They're quite a big community on PlayStation, full of some of the fastest drivers on that platform. And yeah, they decided to make an international league. So when they invited me, couldn't resist. And the grid is very, very competitive. There was actually a round one before this at Bahrain, but if you saw that live stream, my wheel kind of had a little bit of a meltdown. So not even going to include those highlights because we didn't even finish that race. So technically this is round two, but really my first proper go on a PlayStation League here. And we're Austria in the McLaren in the pouring rain, and haven't really done too much wet weather on this game, but I was actually feeling pretty confident in these conditions. Despite the laps not feeling that well put together, we were fairly close to what the fastest time was all the time. So as the session developed, did get quite a bit more confidence. You can see on the wets here, setting a purple last sector, currently P6. But then the track was slowly starting to dry. We're on the intermediates here. This is my first run doing a purple middle sector, so quite a bit up on what we did on the wets. And I really felt like I had a great chance at pole position here to get my championship on track in the first place. Coming around this last corner, taking it a bit cautiously, so being very careful on the curbs. And coming across the line, this is a 13.3, so P5, but only a couple attempts away from pole. So what I did is I decided to go for a bit of a cool down lap. You can see we're turning down the ERS here, try and recover my tyres a bit, and now go for a final lap. But the problem is, I have a guy behind me called SXT Daniel, who was actually on a lap right now. I was trying not to get into his way because the timer is coming very close to 0. So I was trying to time it really well to get a lap. You can see he's almost right behind me, but not quite. And now we go ahead and start our lap. So coming off this turn 1, let's see what we do here. We get a much better exit, so we should be gaining so much more time on this lap because the track is getting dry. But you can see his straight line speed is very, very fast. If you look at that proximity arrow, he's going down the inside into here, and we've made contact on a qualifying lap. Looking back at this, at the time I was quite angry, but I'm going to be completely honest, I think that was my fault completely. I should have really just let him go before that lap. I apologised to him after the race, and yeah, I was quite disappointed in myself there. I kind of turned in just hoping that he wouldn't go down that inside, because I thought he'd be losing time anyway if he tries to overtake on a qualifying lap. But yeah, I don't know. Let me know what you think. But before anyone says you don't think it's your fault, I do think it's my fault. I think I should have just let him go, and then we could have both got a lap in. But now it's kind of hurt both of us, him even more. We're still improving though, but how much time did we lose because of that? I think we lost quite a bit of time. Coming across the line, it's only P9. And yeah, we were pretty angry at the time, but I think I should have just let him go. And I'm sorry to Daniel. I really shouldn't have turned in like that. I was just frustrated at the time, but you can see half a second down. I think maybe pole would have been out the stretch, but I think we could have been maybe in the top 3 fairly comfortably. But as the lobby was going here, I had my gloves off still, and there's no formation lap, so I was in a really big rush to get my gloves back on, because it actually takes me a while to put them on, and I'm really frantically trying to get on, desperately trying to change my setup, so I had to change the tyre pressures. I need to change the fuel as well, because they overload or they overfuel the car by standard quite a bit around here. I wanted to change to the car strategy, but I didn't have time. I only had time to change my fuel. I didn't have time to change tyres. So we're starting on the medium tyres, which is something I didn't want to do. So we've got 5 lights here. And as they go out now, everyone else is on hard tyres around me, but we actually get a really, really good start. So maybe that's a blessing in disguise as someone just ghosted straight through someone else. We're very lucky we didn't get taken out there, but we've actually made up 2 positions. Still, you can see there, still trying to get my gloves on because there wasn't any warning. Normally, there's a bit of a gap between qualifying and when the race starts, like there is in BRS. In this league, it was just instant, and I had my gloves off, and I just was not prepared at all. So we're over-fueled on the car. You can see 1.2 laps. Normally, you want to be 0.0 quite often, but you can see we've actually gone up into P6 now. So a really good start, and maybe doing something different, the strategy might actually work. So the medium tyres are going to be very good for maybe the first 5 or 6 laps, but that's when the hard tyre starts to cross over and come a bit closer. No rain is scheduled at all, so the only thing I really got to hope for here is maybe a safety car. If there was one before lap 15, that's actually going to work in my favour very, very nicely. But we move on to lap 5. Not really too much has happened since this point. We were just saving my ERS at this stage of the race because it is very difficult to recover the battery around here. So I was kind of just holding station, but now I decided to push because I felt like the guys up ahead of me were overusing their battery a little bit. So I wanted to make a little bit more progress. See, Drakatos goes out wide, and that gives me an opportunity to go down the inside here. He's not really going to fight this too hard because he is on the harder compound right now, and that's put me up into P5 behind my teammate Danger Times, which I absolutely love that name. But yeah, I was pretty happy with this progress, and if I could get close to my teammate, I felt like he wouldn't make it too difficult to get the move done. So we're still going to try and conserve our ERS. You can see how much we've actually lost by just overtaking on that previous lap. So the goal was to try and get in that train for the top 3, and if a safety car comes out, then you never know what could happen, because if I started on the hard tyres, I'd probably still be maybe in 7th, 8th or 9th in no man's land, because it's just so hard to make progress on this game. The DRS is just not powerful, the ERS is too powerful, and you just can't make progress. It's very, very difficult to do on this game. But as you can see, coming through here, getting a good exit. And does my teammate fight this? I think the answer is no, so we're going to turn off the ERS, and he doesn't really fight it too much. But we're going to be showing quite a bit of raw footage in this race, because there was a little bit to see. And now I just want to get within the DRS zone, and we've actually got the DRS to VSR Rowan up ahead. So we skip on to lap 10. We're in the fight for the lead of this race. We're in this main train. Tyres are still working quite well at this stage of the race. You can see we've actually saved a bit of ERS, but you can also see the fuel has increased. So having that fuel that I couldn't really change is going to hurt me a little bit on the lap time. So not exactly optimal right now, but I was very, very happy with this pace. And as you come through into the middle of lap 10, see there's a yellow flag. Looks like someone's gone off in this R sector. Someone's retired from the race. Dutch Tricks, it's out of the race, and that is a safety car that has come out, and that is absolute perfect timing. Because you can see a couple of the hard guys have continued. Someone has come into the pits, but the thing is, if they go put on the mediums, they probably could get to the end of the race, but their tyres are going to be so worn on the last 5 laps. They're at a very big risk of a puncture territory, and putting these hard tyres on, I knew could comfortably get to the end of the race. So I knew towards the end of the race, the pace, I think, would be a lot faster on these tyres than it would on the medium. So coming up here, we're actually going to come out in P7 with some people up ahead still yet to pit as well. That is absolutely perfect. So at the moment, the strategy is working in my favour, and we are the lead man on the fresh hard tyres. We've got a couple of medium guys up ahead of me who have pitted for fresh mediums, but it's going to be... I felt like they could get to the end, but it's going to be a big risk, and they're going to be very, very slow at the end of the race. As the safety car now comes in, kind of get caught out on the timing as usual here. It's definitely something I need to get better at, as we've got Drakatos behind on those fresh mediums. This guy up ahead of me I don't think has pitted yet, Zoro John, who's on some older hard tyres. So I really want to get past him as quick as I can, but I didn't really want to fight Drakatos too much because I knew the mediums would be much faster at stage race. We actually understeer, so understeering into John, which again is my error, my mistake, being a bit clumsy. And yeah, my racecraft was a bit poor in this race. We were just, I think, still a little bit frustrated at some things, but yeah, that was a little bit of a mistake on my part, as that has allowed Drakatos to come through. And yeah, what we're going to try and do now is stay with him as much as we can, try and limit that gap that he is putting away. And because I knew that the hard tyres would come back into my favour towards the end of the race, and I knew for certain that I would quite comfortably be able to make it to the end of the race from here. As we do a little bit of a wiggle to Spanish behind, just saying to him that we're not really going to fight this too hard because I wanted to try and save my ERS as much as we could, as Vincent Roaring has had a bit of an incident with someone else. I don't know what has happened here, but that is a big name who has dropped out of that lead train. We're going to let Spanius go here because no point really fighting too much, costing us both time. So I wanted to try and latch on to one of these medium runners and see if I could just keep within this DRS train, but the mediums are going to be very fast at this stage of the race. As we skip on to lap 16, you can see Spanish has got past. We're still behind the Aston Martin, or another Aston Martin here, who I don't believe has pitted yet, so he's taking a bit of a risk with the strategy. As we've got NSX Connor behind, who is the next man on fresh hard tyres. You can see the medium runners have got away a little bit, but I knew that it would come back to me towards the end of this race because the wear in the mediums is quite a bit more than the hards, and if they didn't get a puncture, then they're going to be losing a lot of time at the end of this. So you can see going past this guy, and we're just going to try and I was trying to maybe get back in the DRS zone here using all of this ERS, but I don't think we are going to be close enough as Alex retires from the race. And all we can do now is just try and limit this gap as much as possible. So do the damage limitation, prevent them from pulling away too far up ahead of the road. You can see the gap is 1.5 seconds right now. The mediums will still be in a good condition, but I suspect towards maybe the late 20s, that's where the drop-off will begin, and it will be a very big drop-off as well. So the gap is 1.5 seconds. Let's see what it is on the next lap, and you can see I think it's about 1.8 seconds, so about 3 or so tenths on this one, managing to keep the gap to Connor behind, who does set the fastest lap of the race. So I felt like my pace was really good at this stage of the race, and you can see the gap is now 2.3 seconds. So mediums are still working pretty well. As we skip on to the next lap, you can see again about another 2 tenths we have lost. So every lap it was coming down just that, maybe just that little bit more, but as we skip to lap 25, see the gap did go up to 5.1 seconds to the guy in second, 4.6 to Spanius, but this was the point where we started to actually close in, and the laps before the gap was coming down by 2 or 3 tenths per lap, and you'll be able to see as we go through this left-hander, this is where their tyres were really starting to drop. If you look at that delta, 4.7 seconds, 4.6, it's going to go down quite a bit. With still 10 laps of this race to go, I thought it was game on, and that gap is just going to come down quicker and quicker every single lap. So right now, I felt like we were in a good shout of winning this race, and you can see the lead train or the lead group of 3 are all together. VSL Rome retires from the race, so I don't know what's happened there. That's a yellow flag, and what has that done? Is that a virtual safety car or real safety car? No. Full-blown safety car, which completely ruins the strategy. And now everyone's just going to pit for softs. And yeah, that on this game, I feel in my races I've been very unlucky with safety cars. I think it just always comes out at the right time. And now in this game, there's not much you can do with the strategy. You've got to hope for a safety car if you start in the mediums, because hard to medium is just superior most of the time. And yeah, if you have another safety car like I did after the first one, then it just kind of ruins the advantage you had, because I felt like I was going to catch them towards the end of the race with the tyre wear that they were suffering. I think it would have been a very, very high probability that we could have done that. But now we're all on softs. DRS is not going to be activated until the next 3 laps. And ERS is just very, very precious around here. You can't keep pushing every single lap. So it's just very difficult to make up positions around this circuit. But we're still in a P5 after starting P9. So still good progress, but what could have been in this race? And that's kind of been the story of my F1 22 League races. I think the pace has always been quite good. Sometimes just haven't hooked it up, and I think on other occasions we've been a little bit unlucky in terms of the safety car timings. But if I'm being completely honest, and I didn't get a penalty in the end, I think if I got a penalty for what happened in qualifying, I would have accepted that pretty happily. I was pretty disappointed of that there. So maybe that's a bit of karma for that. But we're in P5 here. Spanish has overtaken Connor, Connor, he decided to stay out to see. But you can see if we stayed out as well, I think we would have been maybe losing positions, not gaining any positions. So it was an absolute no-brainer to pit. But you're about to see here, he still has the DRS of Spanish. And you can see how the slipstream and the DRS effect are just not that powerful at all. No, you can see we're barely gaining anything. He's going quite defensive, and yeah, I do think the balancing in this game with the slipstream, DRS and ERS definitely needs to maybe be jigged up a little bit, because it just makes it very, very hard to make progress. And they've even seen that with the likes of Jarno Opmeer in F1 Esports. On previous games or previous championships, didn't have a great qualifying, but still could come through the field because there was a much wider options with the strategy. On this game, you just can't do that. But they have included that tyre allocation to the game, which was done after this race. That could really spice things up for the strategy in the future, which I am looking forward to quite a lot. But see, coming through here, Spanish has actually broken out the DRS zone. We're going to try and overtake Connor before this turn 1, because again, the DRS is just not that powerful, and we just really want to get a bit of a move on in this race. But you're about to see here that I felt overall I had some really, really good pace in this race, both in the wet and the dry conditions. I felt once I got out into the clean air, then we were very, very competitive pace-wise. And I think if we could have, I could have had that good quality, then I think we could have been maybe right at the front of this race, because Austria is quite a good track for me. But we're just trying to get within the DRS zone of Spanish up ahead now. And you can see we have actually got within the DRS zone. So going through here, we're running quite a high downforce setup. See, gaining through into these corners, trying to gain quite a lot of time coming off this left-hander, not even using the ERS here to get into the detection zone. And it looks like we're just about to do it. So we almost lose the car. Coming through into here, manages to do it, and now we've got to try and save some ERS, because the fight for the podium is still on. So I decide, starting P9, if we could get on the podium, I would definitely be taking that. But as we skip to lap 33, see, we are getting closer and closer. NSX Connor has retired, and that has brought out the full safety car, which it went from a virtual safety car to a full safety car. And yeah, that's kind of ruined our race again, because now there's going to be no DRS zone for the overtake, although it's not that powerful anyway. At least if the car ahead of you doesn't have the DRS, then it makes it even easier to overtake them. But now they can just defend. They've got all their batteries saved up, and yeah, we've only got 2 laps really of racing to do. So getting a bit of a better time with the safety car, and yeah, that's kind of ruined our advantage again, because we could have just stayed behind the DRS and had an even better opportunity to overtake him. But now with these cars, none of them having the DRS, all the battery all charged up, everyone can just use their ERS button as we make a bit of a mistake. So the race is going from bad to worse right now, and yeah, you can see just a clumsy mistake here. So good pace potential, but just not quite delivering it all today for this race. But the guy ahead of me does have a penalty, so all we need to do is just stay behind him and we'll be in the top 4, which will still be a good result since we didn't even finish the first round and from where we qualified here. So all we need to do is just stay behind, play it nice and calm, because it unrealistically, unless the top 3 have a bit of a issue, it's going to be very hard to get into that top 3. But at this moment, when I was racing, I was really gutted that I wasn't in for a chance of the win of that race, or this race, because of the safety car coming out. I really just wanted to try and finish on track as much as possibly can, but going to here, yeah, I guess I don't know what to say about that. I think I felt like I broke up my normal braking point, so I don't know if it was me braking late or maybe him braking earlier. But at the end of the day, when it's the car behind, I always say it's a little bit more of their responsibility. So again, I would say that's my fault, and just a very, very frustrating race in the end. But you can see we're still trying to make up some positions, so we're still up into P5. Got this guy up ahead of me in the Mercedes. His red light is flashing, so we had quite a lot of ERS to use as well. And yeah, despite these little mistakes, we're still in a fairly good position in this race. So we're going to be using all of our ERS here, but it looks like it's not going to happen. And yeah, you'll see we're quite frustrated once we cross the line. As coming across here, we're going to come home in P5, which we ended up staying in, even despite those incidents. Thank you so much for support on this video. Please let me know your thoughts as usual. And yeah, you can see we've just had enough at this point. But it was a very fun race. Looking forward to getting back into the next one, which will be next Wednesday. Thank you so much, and I'll catch you very, very soon. Peace.